JP Morgan. And so what we love to do is host an event that is about a very different side of healthcare, the side of journalism and storytelling.
Raging against the machine.
Raging against the machine.
What we're doing.
Love it.
What we're doing.
Yes, because it really matters. I'm also the author of 2 books on culture change in medicine, which you guys are referencing right there. And I'm working on a 3rd book right now about money in medicine, which is terrifying and it's such a taboo, and it's really, really fun to work on. And so I'm really glad that you guys are all here to give me emotional support on that. When we booked this venue, in the summer, we didn't know that the skater event was going to be here. This incredible photography exhibit. This is actually the very last day of the show. If you haven't already checked out the video and the headphones and all the interactive pieces of this show, be sure to check it out before you go. I really appreciate this coincidence of this kind of culture, though, because I do feel that this is the energy we need for 2026. We are cursing. We are using photocopiers. We are doing cool things and feeding the man and practicing stuff and taking over urban spaces and not asking for permission and just yeah. So the skater energy has been a huge gift to us and also to you, and we're grateful that our panel is here today also to bring that big energy. But I would be remiss to not also talk about our incredible partners, the National Kidney Foundation. So with that, I brought my fan club with me. First, I'm Annie Sciacca. I'm the Executive Director for the National Kidney Foundation, serving California, Nevada, Oregon, and Washington. And I first want to thank Emily and Claudia. This partnership with Uncommon Goal has been so rewarding on so many levels, and we get to have, and I'm so excited for what you guys are about to talk about. But I think about this energy that you bring to what we do, Emily. It's just so meaningful and kind of reminds me of why we do what we do. So thank you very much. I was going to go into a whole speech about what I think, this intersection of healthcare and journalism and what that means. I mean, I've seen the stories. I've seen what telling these patient stories means and the impact that it can have. And so I thank you all so much for what you do and how you bring our community to life. And I know how it can change the trajectory of somebody's journey. And I've seen it happen, and I've seen it happen time and again. So I thank you all for being here. I thank this amazing panel for being here, and I'm excited for what we get to talk about. I want to share a little bit about what you're seeing over here. So for this, we're going into our 37th year. We've been hosting the Authors Luncheon, where it brings storytelling to benefit the kidney community. And so this year we've got an amazing lineup of authors. I'll give you a couple of teasers now. We've got Bob Wachter from UCSF, who's going to be talking about AI in healthcare. And then we've got Andrew McCarthy. So if any of you are Brat Packers, he's going to be talking about male friendship in the U.S. right now, which I think is also an interesting subject. And then we're honoring Dr. Neil Poe, who's a UCSF Chief of Medicine, and he has been a game changer and removed the race-free equation for kidney patients. And so I think that he's been making some significant strides for our community, and it's the ripple effect of what he's been doing has been tremendous. So I thank you all for being here. If you have questions about the Authors Luncheon, for anybody who's here tonight, we have a code if you want to join us, and you'll get 20% off. I'm blanking on the code right at the moment.
It's in the zine.
Yes,
you can find it. Yeah.
I want to make sure I don't miss anything. I'll leave it at that. So, but come over and talk to us after, and we're doing a lot of amazing work. We cover from improving outcomes on upstream and all the way through transplant. Had an amazing conversation about what we're doing on the transplant side of things, and so know if you're supporting the event. Good work. Thank you.
I got like 40 minutes to party.
I'll keep you guys on track.
Right on.
Yeah.
We don't need microphones.
No.
Thank you all for being here. I know how much fun it is to have scotch with VCs. Been there, but like actual change actually happens here. They know that, we know that, it's cool. So before we start, quick introductions. My name is Alok Patel. I'm a pediatrician. I work for ABC News. I do writing and journalism in different outlets. The most recent thing I'm working on is co-hosting HBO's podcast with The Pit. I announced that because there is an intersection of pop culture and change. I love it. And the icebreaker question is a 90s singer or band. that was your go-to back in the day. Aside from Rage Against the Machine, mine was Nirvana. So, if you would please, tell us who you are, what you do in the band or the singer.
Well, you stole it with Nirvana, but I will introduce myself. Annie Sciacca, freelance journalist and college journalism educator at Contra Costa College.
Love it.
Yeah. And yeah, Nirvana, I don't know, it's hard to pick one. But.
Come as you are, it's all good.
I'm Jennifer Kahn. I teach in the Graduate School of Journalism at UC Berkeley, and direct the narrative track, and I write the New York Times Magazine. I've been a contributing editor there for maybe 15 years. And I think I'm just going to say Our Lips Are Sealed by the Go-Go's.
Oh.
A little bit of a deep cut, but
that was a deep cut. So straight up, both Annie and Jennifer are being very humble in terms of the impact they've had in science communication, and also as educators. So I want to ask you a question that I was asked once upon a time when I said, I want to be a medical journalist, is what is your why? And so I try to write stories and articles and have some type of call to action. You know, some people are trying to entertain, some people are trying to sell BS products or raise awareness. Yeah. What would you say your whys are? What is your goal in writing about what you write about?
I mean, I'm all about the BS products.
Love it. Make that cash.
Yeah, exactly. I'm actually constantly I should write a book about the dog war. Just try to target as many segments of people who buy things. No, actually, the thing I really love. So I do these very big, long form pieces that can feel like making chainmail and Arab machine guns. It's these long 6,000 word cover story type things. But I think the thing that really appeals to me about it is so much nuance and complexity get lost when you get things boiled down to 10 seconds on TikTok or whatever it would be, even just shorter news pieces or TV segments. So to me, there's something about being able to, if you do it right, actually unpack, show people how complicated things actually are. And if you're telling it right, hopefully actually keep them, have them develop a question of their own that they really are then hungry for the answer as they go through the piece. So it sticks with them a bit. So I guess that's my why.
I like that. Kind of helping people understand the intricacies to appreciate the broader point. Right.
Yeah, I think for me it's surfacing. I got my start with, and I don't always refer to myself as a healthcare writer per se, but started covering nursing homes during the pandemic as sort of an entry point, and it made me realize, and I think this has been kind of a through line, whatever I'm writing about, that there's a lot of things that I don't think we talk about in society. I know we're all kind of immersed in it here, and yet it was shocking that things like long-term care or all these systems, especially this intersection of business and government and health, which is something we all use, a lot of people just don't know the nitty-gritty about it. And so I think helping people understand these systems and showing how people are truly impacted by it, amplifying those voices and those experiences has been why I'm kind of drawn to that.
Okay, so you beautifully set this up, and we're now going out of order. So, without realizing this, my work has had a connection to both of your works. I'm a writer. So last year, you had a piece with Kaiser, Annie, about how the National Suicide Hotline was getting defunded. Yes. And Jennifer, this is hilarious, but in 2020, I worked on a documentary about CRISPR.
Oh, wow.
And we were doing all this background research on how it was being presented. And there was just a little TED Talk that has been viewed about 17 million times. And it was yours about CRISPR and talking about CRISPR-Cas9. Now, my question is going back down to impact. So, in the past year, we'll get back to the past year later, don't worry. My blood pressure's not high enough yet. We've seen some of the scientific expertise get lost and weighted through misinformation, and people not necessarily understanding the long-term impact of what's happening. In this case, when there's cuts to policy, people not understanding, this is going to affect my ability to get healthcare. This is going to affect mental health resources. People not paying attention to how research is going to affect the potential for CRISPR, for gene editing to give us a cure one day to cystic fibrosis, to thalassemia, to HIV, and so forth. So my question to both of you is, do you think that we have done a little bit of our job in helping people understand the long-term ramifications of what's happening? That's a loaded question.
When you say we, like just we as
We collect the scientific
media,
communicators,
the scientific communicators.
the evidence-based communicators of the world.
I mean, I want to say yes, just because I think there's so much. Yes, and there's so much good work, right? This is the hard part about talking about the impact of media, that I look around and there's incredible work on so many things. Is it always reaching people? That I don't know. And how do we make it reach more people? That I also don't know all the time. I think we're figuring that out, but I think it's hard because there is incredible work. There's incredible health journalism out there about so many things. So it's hard for me to say, yeah, we're doing a terrible job and, we're not having the impact. We may not be having the impact, but how is it? I think the question is sort of how do we help connect the dots for people and really help make things kind of more a part of people's everyday conversation or their understanding when they're getting care or planning care or those kinds of things. So it's probably not a satisfactory answer.
No,
but
I'm
it's
with you. I'm
it's
with you on
hard
being a
question.
part of everyone's conversation. I think just
Yes.
flooding the gates with evidence-based information makes a difference.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a lot. I agree. Like, fantastic
Appreciate
work
that.
out there. Yeah,
It is. I think it's the Safeway delivery truck.
All good.
Right on here.
People need food. People need food. Go ahead.
Your voice.
There's a ton of great work. At the same time, it can feel like a finger in just a dike that's exploding. Sometimes with just, like misinformation, disinformation, people being overwhelmed, by information in general, and who has the time to sift through these things. So all of that is incredibly, it can be discouraging when you think about the sheer volume of things that you're competing against. But one of the things, we were talking a little bit about teaching before this, and I do see in the students, one of the things they really want to do is the thing they come in caring most about. There's two things. One is like injustice and inequities, which is huge and also a part of the story. But the other thing is people. It's like people's stories. They really want to come in and talk about people, and write about their, and so often you have to do a little maneuvering to kind of get those things together. But I think that's my real hope, is that in the face of like the kind of onslaught of stuff, that sort of people like having stories that really show like where the rubber meets the road, whether it's like financials in healthcare or just like the suffering, and then maybe even the science and what can be done about it. Like I have hope that does make a difference.
Speaking of misinformation,
What can we do about it?
so last year, just throw rocks. Last year, we're sitting here, and I remember we had a lot of hope. We said we've got a big year ahead of us, and holy shit, how much has happened in 1 year?
Yeah.
Like we have dismantled so much of our safety net system. I shouldn't say we, I am not part of it, but America has pulled out of initiatives with climate change and with global health and infectious disease. Our vaccine schedule is being questioned. Beef tallow cures everything, apparently, because all autoimmune disease is gone.
Yeah.
And supplements. And it's fascinating because what misinformation does is it feeds into frustration and questions, and it gives people an answer. It may not be correct, but it does. Anybody a 49ers fan?
Yeah.
Right, okay. So, fascinating article that went viral a few days ago. So the 49ers have been plagued with injuries since moving to Levi Stadium in 2014. Any Niners fan knows about this and is frustrated about this. Achilles injuries, ACLs, and so forth. One gentleman who is a quantitative biology expert said the reason this is happening is that there is an EMF substation next to Levi Stadium. And he personally went and measured the amount of EMF. And this is the reason why the Niners have been so plagued. So I did an interview and I said, I guarantee you this guy sells something or has a course or whatever. And sure enough, yes, he lives in Oregon, but sure enough, he sells a course on being able to detox your environment from EMF. I'm rambling. My question is, misinformation, conspiracy theories, they do something well, is they reach humans, and they're engaging. In your experience, is there something that you have been drawn to or a technique you might use in your writing that you're like, this is what reaches people? While you're thinking, I will tell you, on that same CRISPR documentary we worked on, we were at Davis, looking at Cosmo the cow. Are you familiar with Cosmo? The CRISPR cow cat. I asked to do the transrectal ultrasound to check mom's pregnancy, and mom shat all over my legs. that was the part that drew people to the documentary.
Yeah.
So with that being said, is there something that you're like, this is, right? True story. True story.
That's a good question. On that note, I do think drawing people in and kind of what Tim was saying earlier, storytelling draws people in and can help people connect the dots, right? Using people and real experiences as a way to illustrate. And I think we know that. I don't think that's new or groundbreaking. Continuing to do that and continuing to reiterate for people why it matters and what we're talking about by using example is kind of the best thing I can think of. But I don't know that does it all. I think misinformation is a serious problem. I mean, it's something I feel like I'm more grappling with as an educator more than as a writer these days, just in terms of like really focusing the efforts on teaching people how, teaching my students how to grasp media literacy, and it's an ongoing battle, and I don't know if I feel particularly hopeful about it, but maybe you have a better solution.
I'm actually just going to say, like, the problem is, like, we're so wired as humans to want certainty, right? Like, we really don't like uncertainty. Is a huge problem. We just want, we want answers and we want solutions, and we, and I think also, like, to some extent, the establishment has, there's a fair number, like, many of us have had mixed experiences, with medical professionals, right? Like, in general, I think we feel like doctors are on our side. But, I did this article on chronic pain for New York Times Magazine the other year, and just, so many people with chronic pain, just get terribly dismissed. And it's, so that's a real problem, right? And so then, like, I think it's sort of, there's a whole set of things that really open the door, to just people being susceptible to the supplements and the everything else. In terms of what we can do, it's like, I feel like that's where I just kind of almost want to be like, dude, like, don't make this my problem. Like, we need to regulate shit, we need to, like, can we do something about the misinformation at a government level or something like that instead of, making it, like, my job to have to fight it. But, I don't know, beyond that, I guess, try to just hold the baseline on actually providing factual information, try to actually, and hope it kind of boomerangs around, that people, will get disaffected with the magic stuff that they're kind of trying. I don't know. So.
Well, let me ask the question about the balance of the magic and the evidence.
Yeah.
So, Annie, you had a headline, it was called, like, This is When We Die, and it was about this family during the campfire in 2018. Powerful headline. The photo, just kind of photojournalism gold, right? You see this horrific situation. How do you both balance the narrative and the character with the actual science? I struggle with this all the time. I get into fights with our EPs at ABC News about this. But how do you make sure, like, this is a character piece versus there's also science?
I actually have an answer for that.
I
teach that same thing.
Yeah.
It's the banana bread theory of science writing, which is, not banana bread, zucchini bread. Zucchini bread.
Whatever bread, I like it all.
Zucchini bread theory of science writing. Sorry, what is zucchini? It's a disgusting woody vegetable. But it turns out if you grind it up kind of small and add a fair amount of sugar, it makes a delicious cake. So that is my theory of science writing, which is you take the science and you just don't have, what you don't want is a huge round of, like, raw zucchini in your bread, right? So likewise, you don't want just like a giant chunk of science. So I think in my world, the goal is to kind of sprinkle the science in fairly small and then coat it with the sugar of personal stories and other things like that are kind of delicious.
I will credit you, but I'm also stealing this analogy. Can I spin the question for you?
Sure.
Slightly different, because you do write about very powerful policy topics, natural disasters, things that are affecting people. How do you get the people to want to speak to you? I think that's something that a lot of new writers, they ask me, like, how do you book someone? How do you build trust and say, hey, you tell me your story? Tell me your personal dilemma, because I might be able to help more people. How does that process work for you?
That's a good question. It's been different in different beats and different stories. I think the key, though, is just talking to a lot of people and reaching out to a lot of people. It's kind of a numbers game in terms of getting them. And and then part of it is just all the things we kind of learn as journalists, how to, communicate with someone, how to be a little bit vulnerable so that they can be vulnerable with you, all those good things. But yeah, it's kind of a numbers game for me in terms of getting, but it's something I really do strive for. And if I can, work with my editors to get the time to, because there's a lot of stories that, I'm a I wrote for newspapers for 10 years, and you're on a deadline, you have space limitations, you're kind of just working with what you have. But as much as possible, I think I really tried, and now I get a little more time and support as a freelancer with that. But just taking the extra time, the extra step to get those people to talk, to get the experience, because I think it is a more impactful story. I mean, magazine folks know that well, but you kind of need it for that. Yeah.
We're gonna get to education, because I think that's just such an incredibly important topic in the future. But I have a last question while we're talking about your work. I want to hear about a story that you are extremely proud of, and then a story you wish you could have worked on, or something that's not being told.
Yeah. But not one that was already published that you wish you'd done. Secretly.
You can answer any way you want. Like, I will say, I'm very proud of the story I worked on regarding data privacy in healthcare, because we shot it like a Hollywood film. The story that I do not see being told enough are issues with social determinants of health and gaps in this country. Longevity medicine is actually just called longevity for the rich, and that's just not. It's not a topic.
Yeah, that's true. So actually, the one I'm most proud of, probably because it's the most recent, is this one on chronic pain. But also that was, I actually went through a chronic pain thing, so it took me, I had for a year I couldn't hold my phone or type or hold a pencil or do whatever due to some nerve problems in my arm. So I had to sort of get back from that to the point where I could write it. But I'm mostly proud of it because I just got so many emails from people who sort of said that it was the first time they really felt sort of seen by this. This was a big problem when they finally understood their mom's pain or something like that. Honestly, the thing I feel like we should be talking, I mean, people do write about this, but I feel like there are these, I think the system stuff that you were talking about, the systems and the financial stuff is, and these drivers are really, they're harder to report on. They're drier to write about often. They don't have oh no, will the person survive kind of narrative, or what's causing it, the medical mystery, So it's tough. And it can feel intractable. So it's not even solutions journalism. It's like, can we stop capitalism? That seems like a bad thing, or something like that. Things like that. But I do feel like those are huge stories. So.
Yeah. I don't know if there's a particular story I can name right now that I'm most proud of, but more the reporting process. I think, I look back at the stories and they were okay, but I think more being sort of early, at least in California, in reporting on some of the systems issues with long-term care facilities and nursing homes, and really pushing the state to provide a lot of data that they weren't initially providing in terms of the care. And, we sued some counties and were able to get some information from them and really push the California Department of Health to release some stuff that they were not releasing, and just getting that process going with my colleague, I think, was important, because those are the kinds of things we're talking about, the system stuff that I do think are really important, and they can be really dry. I know not everyone likes to read those stories, but I think that's where a lot of that impact can be had, and change can be made, which is partly why I do this, why we do this. I don't know if I can. I like what you said about just doing more of that reporting. There's always more stories.
I mean, if you knew the story,
there's tons of there's tons of stories I would love to do.
Fair.
But yeah.
Fun rapid question. If you could go back to college right now, what would you study?
Oh, that's fucking tough. Because ChatGPT mostly. I don't know what I'd say. I would be an electrician.
That's smart.
Yeah, go into the
You'd have a
trades.
Ferrari.
Exactly. Something manual labor. Yeah.
I'm sort of in school right now. I'm taking some grad classes at San Jose State in information science. So just kind of trying to improve my data skills. So I don't know.
What a responsible answer. So the reason I asked, I'm fascinated. Who here is a writer, by the way? Quick show of hands. So a lot of people. Look how humble you two.
Yeah, I saw a lot of people
we're prolific writers. So one thing I'm fascinated by is the duality between our generation and the young writers, and how they're thinking, and the platforms they're using, and the technologies, and sometimes there's some skipping of steps. But I'm curious. You guys are both educators, which is phenomenal in your and you're empowering the next generation to be truth tellers. Tell us about your students at Contra Costa and at Berkeley. what is driving them to want to study journalism? What do they want to do? What are some of their thoughts? What are they pissed off about?
Do you want to do this one?
Can you just
Okay. Well, what I was saying before is really true, right? They actually come in, they are very, I think it's really interesting because I'll back up a bit and say that when I started teaching, I've been at the school for like 16 years or something like that. And when I started teaching, J-School was a different version of law school, which is when you didn't really know what you wanted to do, you kind of would drift into it maybe. School wasn't so expensive, and people would do stories like they would do their big, master's project would be like, writing about a theater company for the deaf, or something like that. And it was like, great, it's all great. But now people come in, man, they have the sense of urgency like you could not believe. So I get a lot of it's 23 to 25-year-olds who come up, with Trump 1 and now with Trump 2 and have just seen a lot of stuff, the pandemic, everything like this. And they are coming in on a mission, honestly. So it really is they have, there's tons of students who go into our investigative reporting program. So it's I think along with the human stories, there's really a very intense, sense of someone needs to be holding power to account, uncovering corruption, police brutality, whatever it is. So it's really, yeah.
Yeah, my students are a bit different. I teach a community college system. We have a wonderful community college system in California, if you're unfamiliar with it. But I do get a little more of the students who sometimes they come in and they know they want to do journalism and they're ready to get started. And some of them don't know what they want to do. They don't even really know what journalism is, but their counselor put them in this class and they're here to take it. And either way, what is very cool is seeing them fall in love with journalism. Even the ones who don't, sometimes they fall in love with it and they don't want to go into the profession, but there's something really, as some of you who are journalists know, empowering about it, about the act of getting information and relaying it to others in the way that we do. I think there's something that really energizes people, even if it's not something they want to do as a career. And that's really cool to see with I have all sorts of different students, everyone from 17-year-olds to 65-year-old veterans in my program. I have a journalist who just moved here from Palestine who's working on, getting better at journalism in English. She was doing it in Arabic there. And so really, really broad spectrum, but they're all kind of working together to do that work. And it's really cool. It's really cool to see. Yeah.
Have you seen a shift over time in the students in what platforms or what outlets they're thinking about or they're focused on?
The main thing I've noticed is that, it's the same thing that happened to all of us, right? Which is that, everyone used to actually come in having read the places they wanted to write for. So, they would know, they would be like, oh, yeah, there's Mother Jones and the New Yorker or the New York Times or whatever. And now, of course, it's just very scattershot, information. It's almost like it's just sort of completely fragmented and just sort of little bits just fall into people's, brains. And so, yeah, I think that's actually the biggest thing I've noticed. They still want to write and be employed by the same places, the same roster of places. But it's just funny how no one's. There's just so many sources of information now. It's really, that's the big thing.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of students come in not really knowing what they want to do. Sometimes, in my case, with the journalism skills that they're learning, they get their information from all over, TikTok, YouTube, in addition to more traditional news outlets. But they, I kind of encourage them to keep an open mind because look how much things have changed. The industry's changed since I entered it, even since 10 years ago. And so I think a lot of them are just keeping a pretty open mind about, where they get their news and then what they want to produce. Yeah.
So a question I don't feel like asking, but we have to talk about is AI.
I know.
I'm like, damn it. I know, right? And all the young people are like, oh, AI is the future. And I was like, shut up. But the Great Water Wars of 2035 will happen first.
Oh, God. Maybe we'll die.
So a few of us, like Lolita, Eli, a few of us have worked at ABC News in New York. And back in the day, which is 10 years ago, it's not that long ago, we would have to write these things called the Medical Minute. So you're writing a script and it has to be 60 seconds. You got 59 seconds of radio time plus a beat and it has to be that. And it's an art to do that.
Yeah.
Now I can write whatever I want in how many words, and ChatGPT can cut it down to 60 seconds for me. I can say, cut this down to my speaking voice would be like 160. Cut it down, and it'll just do it. I feel like those old school TV editors were mad because they're like, back in our day, film was across the ceiling, and now these little punks are visual video editors.
Yeah.
So how do you see your students using AI? Are you worried about plagiarism? How do you check for that? Lay it on me.
I teach all kinds of classes, not just specialized news writing, but also like media studies for like people who are not journalism majors and all sorts. And I see it all. I see a lot of plagiarizing with ChatGPT, even for like discussion board posts that they should really just. How do you find out? I mean, the detectors are kind of all bad at this point, but you can kind of tell them, I have my systems and we kind of talk about it. I'm not immediately like, you used it, we have to have a conversation because there's no real proof, right? It's really hard. It's a really hard thing to navigate. But yeah, they are using it, and it's hard because I think, there are opportunities to use it in a more, helpful way if you're already a professional, for example, who knows how to use the system. I guess what I worry about is kind of the classic college problem that's happening right now, where it feels like it's kind of ruining people's critical thinking or desire to build those critical thinking skills. I don't know if you have a different experience with your students. They're kind of more focused.
I mean, I do have a different experience just because I actually every year I have this, like, I teach seminars, so it's like 15 people, so I can talk to them. And so, I do a poll, and people still aren't using it. They still have this, like, they're here because they want to be writers, right? They want to be reporters and writers, and they're naturally suspicious, which I love. It's a little cynical because they're journalists, right? And so so they're not just leaping into this. They actually want to, still report this and craft the writing. But that said, I've been noticing it creeps in a bit more. People sometimes use it a little bit for, some research, or like if they're stuck, they'll use it for start a draft. And I'm honestly, I'm fine with it. I just sort of say, don't hand in something because I'm not going to use my one wild and precious life to fucking edit ChatGPT. But, aside from that. But yeah, I mean, other than that, I sort of don't know. I feel like we're all just watching it play out, right?
And I do think there is that difference between the people who, want to learn this craft of writing versus people who are, don't care about the class as much or something. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So I think that's the thing. At least as grad students, they're there because they're paying to be there. If what they're going to pay to do is ChatGPT, they should not be wasting that money.
Right.
So that's
I want to make sure we have time for some questions. I want to kind of swing now to maybe a more optimistic note. Because, there's people here in many different stages, not only of writing, but also in trying to think about impact. Mm-hmm. One of the biggest questions I get is people who are frustrated. So, how do we make impact in this area, in reproductive rights, in, policy changes? And this is a hot topic. I get it. Someone's going to roll their eyes at me. One day there's going to be a case study about why we were talking so much about insurance premiums after Luigi Mangione allegedly killed someone.
Yeah.
The fact that that's what it took. For people to then say, oh yeah, you know what, this is what's happening to healthcare premiums. And so my question is the people who say I want to make change with writing, and they come to you and they say, what can I do to create change and make an impact by learning how to be a writer? What would you tell them? What piece of optimism would you give them?
Well, it's hard. It depends on the day how optimistic I'm feeling, but I mean, I think it kind of relates to the ChatGPT thing too. I was my father-in-law was a journalism professor for 40 years, and I was recently talking to him just because I was so frustrated with why are students using ChatGPT? Do people not want to learn? All the kind of hand wringing. And he said, look, he's like, this is not that big a deal. People always will want to tell stories, and stories, that's what humans are kind of made to do, and we're still going to do that, and it might get worse, and we might be in this kind of doomscape, but I think storytelling, for him was sort of that's the impact that we have, and that's how we learn from each other, and that's how we teach. And I've had my moments where storytelling as a journal, okay, we get a little eye rolly about it, but I think that it is really boils down to what it is, and it's not just, it's partly the using humans and connecting the dots in our writing and our stories, but it is just kind of telling stories too, and that can take, and probably will take a lot of different formats, but I think even when we look at kind of how people are gravitating towards TikTok or whatever format, it's still people want to learn from each other, and I think people do want to hear the impact from people and hear what is going on with other people, and I don't think that's going to go away even when I'm feeling most cynical about the misinformation and the ChatGPT and the online of it all and the isolation. I think people do really want that kind of information.
Well, so the depressing first part of my answer is that it used to be that you could hope to make an impact because you would reach people, say, in Congress or, like wherever it would be. Someone in government would read this and think, oh my gosh, this is a problem. We should change something about this. This is very important. And now not only does that often not happen, is that you actually get the opposite effect. You get some sort of retaliation. So there's a ton of researchers who don't even want to have their work written about because they're worried it'll paint a target on their back, right? So this is a huge problem. But the thing that does give me hope, weirdly, something I think about all the time is how Tina Fey did her impersonation of Sarah Palin back in that election ages ago, for anyone who remembers this. And it honestly probably swung the election a little bit. It was no joke. It was a big phenomenon, and it just kind of made things ridiculous in a way that it didn't change things. And so I actually think about that, regardless of like where you are on the political side, I think about that because I sometimes think, so many of the stories that we're going to do are not going to have an impact. As great as they are, like they're not going to get read, they're not going to make a huge difference. But sometimes all it takes is one, right? It just takes one that really catches fire or really reaches people, and it can really be a tipping point. So I think that's what gives me hope.
All it takes is one. It's so true. Like I've seen one story influence an episode of a TV show. Yeah. I've seen one story all of a sudden become a Senate debate,
that's right,
or get on national news and so forth. Last really quick question: Are you doing any type of social media training or explorations in your classes as well, and how to like cut for social?
Here, let me do it first because no.
Yeah. Yes, a little. I'm kind of working with my students more than being didactic about it because I'm not a social media expert. I'm a kind of a dry newspaper investigative reporter by training, so I'm not really great with the social stuff. But my students, even if they don't have all the skills for like cutting video, they're more natively online. Like they understand TikTok and those kinds of things. I'm learning, and so what I'm trying to help them do is match the sort of journalistic practices and ethics and help them kind of marry that to social media formatting and stuff. So I couldn't give anybody any great tips about like cutting video for social, but more like, okay, if you're doing these things, like you're doing the reporting, you play with the format and stuff. And so, I don't know, we'll see.
I like that. I like we're learning back and forth. I was on a call with a social media agency for a company 2 weeks ago, and young hotshot from the company was talking about how traditional journalism was on its way out, and how like the not only the future but the present was social media, and that is current journalism. This guy went on his rant, and I like was really quiet. And finally, I was like, the funny part is every one of those videos gets their information from traditional journalism,
Right.
and like it just got silent. And then my Zoom messages showed up. Anyway, with that, I want to open it up for questions. I have like 75 questions myself, but please.
So I'm curious, last time, 10, 15 years ago, software engineering was the most popular major and stuff, but recently there's some articles like OpenAI said to pay people like pay $100K a year to be writers because ChatGPT is writing in a nice way and stuff. But what's kind of your view on that? Like tech companies, like traditionally tech companies that are hiring writers to write articles.
Have either one of you seen that with job recruitment?
I haven't really. What are they doing? They're hiring people to
like OpenAI and stuff, saying they hire very highly paid positions.
Oh, interesting.
Ooh, can you
To train
like for like marketing and stuff, or for like
is it to train your LLMs?
Kind of, but
oh.
It's like 90% articles on LinkedIn are like written by ChatGPT.
Yeah.
You have mentioned like no, it's just this and this. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so I think I'm not sure it should be LLM experts at this like. That's probably it, but I think that. Do you think that writing as a skill will become more important, even though like kind of like I'll do like on the ChatGPT kind of stuff?
I mean, this is what God knows, right? It's like, on the one hand, it feels like there's a whole swath of like low-level stuff that ChatGPT is like easily, like any kind of like generative AI is just going to take over. And honestly, some of it's probably fine. Like scientists don't like writing scientific papers a lot of the time. They're pretty structurally formulaic. You know, like why not? If they can get help and get back to their science, like that, like there's all kinds of use cases that are great, honestly. I like to think, certainly when I've tried to, play around with it to be like, write a New Yorker article in my style or whatever, it's pretty bad. So if anyone keeps reading places like the New Yorker and the New York Times Magazine temporarily, I feel safe. But yeah, actually, I mean, that's going to be the question. It's that in coding also. It's kind of like, how good is it actually going to get? Like, that's very similar. My husband is in tech, and so he says that for very simple tasks, it can do it, but the minute you end up with layered things, it's awful. And just like with writing, it kind of not just hallucinates things, but it has a very bizarre logic where it'll correctly summarize 5 different things. And then when you ask it what the recommendation should be based on those 5 different things, it'll just be like, it has no idea what it should. So we'll see if that actually gets any better, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on how much people value writing as a art and as a skill. I mean, I do. I think it's important for people to learn how to write. But I think in journalism, I think it's more than that, because journalism is not just writing. It's, there's a difference between journalism and marketing or PR, right? Like there's a different function, a different intent. And so, I mean, I don't know. And the LLMs don't seem to be really great at journal. I mean, there's data scraping and things that they can do, but, they're limited in terms of its ability. I mean, I don't know. It's hard. I don't know what to make of AI yet. I'm trying to learn more about it, be prepared. I think we all should be learning more about it, and yet it's kind of hard to make a judgment on what they're doing and how we're going to use it in the future in journalism.
I do think that the journalists who can use those tools while maintaining their traditional skills, it's like 2x productivity.
Yeah.
Like when I'm whipping like Chat 5.0 with like Docs GPT, with Zotero, with Elicit, I'm like cocaine.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I feel like there's, this whole trend, we talk about it in IG, right? Instagram versus how people get their information.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really curious, for all of you guys as writers, I'm really curious to hear, everyone in this room too, how much do you find it to be your prerogative or sense of duty to go beyond after you've done the investigative journalism, after you've created the piece, as an educator, as a communicator in your day-to-day lives, to correct or to share, but also to share your work. And I ask this because I thought this was really big pre-election. Like a lot of people came back and were like, I wouldn't even vote unless I kept getting all of these ads, right? And where I voted was based on what ads I get. Even recently, it's like all the news. You have conversations with people. I don't know what news you're reading. We must have very different news. It's like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm new to Instagram in particular as like information drive. Like I think I had a similar path that a lot of journalists had in terms of like when Twitter was really Twitter, that was where we shared work, we shared news. That was like the journalism site.
I miss it.
And then that went away, and I haven't really shared my work on social media since, like in a meaningful way. And so I'm now kind of absorbing, and Instagram to me was always just, I never used it much. It was like, okay, cool, follow my cousins and post their cute kid pics. And now I'm learning, like, there are, like, influencer information providers that I actually find really helpful and really interesting, and they're doing good work on Instagram. So I think there's a lot of potential there, and I think you're right in that we do have a obligation to meet people where they are. I mean, I ask all my students that come into any of my classes where they get their information. It is all Instagram and TikTok. Little YouTube, that is it. That is where they consume their news, their media, their information. So I think we have to make of that what we will, and even those of us who are really averse to social media and sort of Amish in our technology approaches have to get on board, because I do think, and again, I don't think it's to replace the other formats, but to connect people with the work, I think is important. I'm just not good at it.
You know, I honestly don't have much to add. I'm also bad at it. I've been a bad self-promoter since well before social media, so, you know, it's like nothing really changed. But I think the same. It's just like people, you know, I don't often want to read 6,000 word articles, and I write them, you know, so, you know, fortunately I have, like, because I have the luxury of working at a place like the New York Times Magazine, like, they have people who do social stuff, like, they turn things into podcasts, or they have someone read an article on the Daily or whatever, so, I get spared some amount of that, but I actually regularly sort of think, you know, how can I reach the people who are really not New York Times Magazine readers, right? But it does feel challenging. Like, I don't know, maybe Instagram, I don't need these things, you know? I'm not sure to be good at it anyway, even if I did want to do it. And it's just, it's a different job, you know, like that's a different job than the job I have. So I honestly I don't know, like maybe it does mean I have to step up and train. But it's a real question.
There's a team doing it.
Yeah, I think the best. Having a team do it is great.
Yeah.
So I agree that we have to do it.
Yeah, right.
Because it's there. And if you look at demographics, you look at regions of where people get their information from, you can see this disparity.
Yeah, that's the thing.
You can partner with people, which I always recommend. You can partner with someone else. There's influencers who want this content.
That's a good idea.
Institutions, companies have somebody working in marketing who knows how to cut these things. The minute a 6,000 word article then vets the process from the medical unit, for example, then that goes to the social media editors and they're like, give us the one pager.
Right.
Then they turn that into the 30-second video that it's a trickle down effect, and that reaches millions of people.
Yeah, so many more.
But to your first thing, I have such a bad sense of duty. I have no work-life balance. I get so many fights on social media. But the one plus to it, have you seen the movie 8 Mile? Yeah, you know, last scene, like, I am white, I am a blonde, yeah. I do find it really enlightening to learn what the haters are thinking.
Yeah.
Any project I work on, people are like, don't read the comments. I was like, this is the first place I go.
Yeah, totally.
He's annoying, I don't like his voice, I want to know. And, you know, even if it's something related to vaccines, I want to know. Not every person asking a question about vaccines is anti-vax. Vaccine hesitant, completely different category. But I want to know, is it the ingredients? Is it the schedule?
Right.
Is it the messaging? Is it trickle effect from COVID? And you learn that by talking to haters.
Yeah.
Any other? One more question? One more question?
One more. Yeah.
Thank you. This is great. I agree that the mill where JP Morgan started their years.
Thank you. You work for JP Morgan.
For my question, I'm wondering how you as writers and editors set your priorities and what's your mental algorithm. The context of this question is, I work in a medical intervention that's shadow banned from social media comments, and we've practiced very successfully. We've been creating a greater story around content by the way the most social bankrupt content ever. It's a lot of design. But I guess it opened my mind to how much whether it's political priorities or capital allocation is really shaped by COVID content. And so when you are mandated to do your work in editorial space, I would say I understand there's some commercial, but how do you actually decide what is important and what can work? How does that work?
I'll go last.
I don't know, I'm probably the wrong person. For me, it's a combination of like what editors want to assign, and in terms of my own work, my background's a little more in like accountability reporting, so I'm often not writing things that are like, I don't know, like here's this new innovation, things like that. I'm kind of more focused on problem, like what is some dark tragedy or problem that's happening that needs light shined on it, just as like a framework. So I don't know. That's kind of where I'm at. Every newsroom has their kind of different priorities. I think it's like, it has to be, I think though, like I can speak for a lot of newsrooms that they don't want to just be like the mouthpieces for something, right? Like it has to be like, what is this? What is the real like impact happening here? Like this isn't, like it's, because they're not, marketing firms, they're like newsrooms. So it has to be something that's kind of like telling a bigger story, perhaps, in terms of not just like a product or a particular innovation, but like something that's like a trend or, something a little bit deeper. I don't know if that answers your question, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, mine's basically, it's sort of, you know, like I have to pitch all my stories. Insofar as they come to me, it's sort of the most awful half-baked ideas, so I basically just end up having to pitch them anyway. And, you know, then it's just always a matter of convincing them that this is, you know, something that needs to be in the limited number of stories that can go in the, you know, print magazine. And so that's like, you know, stakes, significance, why we care, why now, and then how you're going to tell the story. Like, is it a good story as opposed to just, you know, an important graphic? And so, like, it's basically just that straightforward. It's kind of a question.
I think it's super fun to write with people who have a different end goal than we do. It's like we're talking about health and science. And when you work with someone in like television documentaries or for digital health companies or even traditional companies, they're trying to sell something.
Yeah.
But like we need people to watch the show. Who cares about science? And so then you're trying to find this alignment between the goals. So we don't really talk much about audience. We ran out of time, but like different audiences, different platforms, different end goals. Yeah. And to try to decide with this company or with whatever entity, like, what are you trying to get out of this article? Like, what does my editor actually want? Because oftentimes they want something different than what I do. And then we're going to sit down together and work to be like, okay, you need to have the glitz and the lights, and Act 1 needs to be really dramatic so people tune in. And then we're going to make zucchini bread. We're like, you want to sell this water purifier. Cool. I'm not going to freak people out and make them think that their water has arsenic in it. But here's a way in. Like, so just trying to align those goals with editors, I think sometimes having those conversations early and being like, what are we trying to do here makes a big difference.
Thank you guys so much.
We could have ran for an hour.
Thank you so much, Hannah, and to you guys all for coming and participating and being part of this conversation. As I said, this is not the end. This is the start. Right? There are so many stories to tell. As you heard, you can just write one story. That can be it. One incredible story. I hope that you will join us in March at the Kidney Foundation's Authors Luncheon, which is such a fantastic event. I hope you'll work with me and help me write my book about money and medicine. I hope you'll tune in and support more journalism, more conversations, better stories for the year ahead. And so thank you so much. Please eat food, hang out, be with us for a little bit longer, and we'll see you again next year.
Woo!
2027.
What question?